Hi everyone, welcome back to the Zicast. I'm your host Ryan Ziaks, and today I'm joined by film editor Antonio Shippee Lopez.
Hi everyone, I'm Antonio Shippee Lopez. I'm a 3+1 film student at Quinnipiac University, and I'm excited to be on the Zicast.
I'm so happy to have you, Antonio. So yeah, let's just kick things off right away and let me ask you, you kind of mentioned that you study film at Quinnipiac University where we know each other, where
Yeah.
we work together. Can you tell us about where your interest in all of that stems from?
I think it really stems from like when I was a kid, my dad showing me movies. When like my dad was home and my mom was gone, he didn't want to watch like kids shows and stuff, so he would turn on the movies that he would like, and I would just sit there with him, like when I was 3 years old, watching Apocalypse Now, and I think that started it. But I think the true thing that happened was when I was in elementary school, and me and my friends were making videos on the iPads. I don't know if you ever did that, but me and my friends had like, well, two of my friends had like YouTube channels. We would post all these terrible videos. Like looking back at them now, terrible. But at the time we loved it. Like this is what we love to do. Every weekend we would go out with like an iPad and we just film a video. And I think that passion was created then. Like, and I think just the idea of that has just continued my entire life.
3 years old watching Apocalypse Now is
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
funny to hear. But also, yeah, that's kind of how it starts for a lot of people, where it's just starting as like a genuine passion, a genuine love, and then that carrying with them, and then them, of course, getting professional opportunities like you've been able to do. But I think it's fitting you kind of mentioned your family, which kind of leads us into kind of like your kind of your roots, like what I want to talk about, which is your trip to Spain this past
Yeah.
summer studying abroad there and all that taught you. Can you tell us what kind of encouraged you to go out there and just tell us a bit about that experience?
I knew going into college, I wanted to go to a school that had a good study abroad program. And I just knew I was going to go to Spain. I just knew that my entire life. And my family's from Spain. My dad's from Madrid. He has a lot of cousins still there, and that's why I have the same amount. And I just wanted to meet them for the first time or meet cousins I haven't seen in a while. So I decided, like my sophomore year, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna spend from January all the way to July and just hit it all off. And it was incredible. And I think definitely planning for like multiple years was the best avenue of approach for me. I think the one thing I should have done better is just prepare more for the language. I'm still learning Spanish, and I think I should have spent and dedicated much more of my time earlier on, reading and writing in Spanish a lot earlier. But it was incredible.
And I know you took some classes while you were out there too. Can you tell us what kind of stood out to you about anything you were learning there?
Yeah, so I took a lot of classes. A lot of them were just like general classes that would match like the Quinnipiac curriculum. The one that didn't was the wine tasting. That was a fun class. It was just a wine history for the first like month or so before the midterm, which is kind of crazy that there's so much history about wine tasting and wine itself. But that was fun. But the classes structures are a lot more like exam based. You do like no work basically throughout the entire semester. You're just reading and writing notes, and then you have two big like exams throughout the entire course. Now, that's how I felt in my opinion. That's how it was just designed for the few classes I took. But everything was basically exam, 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 comparatively to Quinnipiac, where you have small projects throughout the year, a few papers here and there. My biggest class was a culture and history class of Spain where you had two professors. You talk about like 100-year period of time in Spain's history. One would talk about the culture, and one would talk about the history of the same period. And then the big paper at the end of the year was something about your major in your home university, talking about Spanish culture. So I wrote a paper on Spain's relationship with film and how something about like the political circumstances of the country never gave them an opportunity to have a film revolution like say France did or Italy did after the wars. So it was a cool class, and they definitely like encourage you to learn more about the culture, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and the wine tasting, that's especially interesting. What was that whole process like?
It was early in the day. I wanted to say it started at 11 a.m. and it ended at 1. So then something like around then. Um, so you'd go in the first like month, you just learned history. The professor was a intelligent guy, and like he definitely had like a history background. And there's like a side class that was definitely only offered to international students. So it's definitely like a more fun class than you would normally have. But then after the midterm, the class was focused on groups of kids. So I was in a group of like 5 people, and we had to buy a bunch of wine for like a certain type. So we bought a white wine, and we had to buy like uh explain the wine history, like what the wine tastes like, and you have to like try to like find the aromas, and it was fun. We really enjoyed the class because you have like 3 or 4, you try 3 or 4 wines a class, and I think it was just like a fun class you could like spend and bond time and make like new friends. That's what like the biggest point of the class was to learn about wine, like why it's so important to Europeans, especially Southern Europeans. um, and then like just meeting new kids. I met my group. I had 2 girls from New Hampshire. Oh, 2 guys from New Hampshire, a girl from Colorado, and 2 girls from like the Midwest, somewhere else, not Colorado. I think it was like Wyoming or something. But it was an interesting class, interesting people, and I think that was a fun experience.
And what were some of your takeaways from all that?
I think I'm more of a red wine guy. Definitely. I think the taste of it is better. Um, I I don't know if it was because we're drinking white wine that wasn't cold or something, but it was just a fun class. It was definitely early to be drinking wine. Like it wasn't like a wine tasting too, where you'd spit it back out. They give
Mm.
you like half a glass in each one, and you just drink the whole thing. So it definitely got to you after a few times. At like 11 a.m., man, a little rough.
Yeah, yeah, on an empty stomach, yeah, drinking
Yeah.
there in class. And I'm glad you're able to have experience like that, but I'm curious what your day to day was like when you're in Spain.
Yeah, so we only had 4 days of class. So Monday to Thursday, and Friday was a like an off day every week, which was great. Um, my day to day was I'd wake up. I was doing a family live in. The family was great. They were really nice to us, and they were just amazing. It was 2 daughters about our age, and then the wife and husband, and they were great to us. I was living with one of my friends, Anthony Savato, in the same room. It was like a Quinnipiac situation, so I wasn't surprised by like the living conditions. It was really nice. They helped us. They like did our laundry. It's like what you expect, but they were a great people, like great people. Um, and then every day I'd wake up, I'd grab like a banana or something. I'd go through the metro, go to school, go to my first class. And then I would leave the class. Like when class ends, I go to cafe. I get like a little coffee, a little sweet treat, wait a few minutes, go to my next class, and then go back to the dorm. That's what I did every day. And then in the weekends, we either go out or we would leave the city and go to a different city somewhere else. Me and my friend went to Malaga, which is a beautiful coastal city. We went during Lent, the first week. So they had a lot of festivities. It's a very Catholic region of southern Spain, and it was beautiful. You see all these people dressed in all these attire, and you go to the right and you see the beautiful Mediterranean Sea, and it's incredible, incredible. The day to day was just I go to class and I would just go around. I would just explore the city. Um, I would I think I walked 7 miles a day on average, and it was definitely the most every day I walked in my entire life. And it was amazing because I would go out, I would talk to people. You'd always try to talk to someone new, and people like a lot of them didn't really know English, which was surprising compared to like when I was in Madrid. Everyone knew English, but in Sevilla, not many did. But when you talk to them, they love you, and then like a lot of people just want to keep talking to you. And it was just a great experience that everyone just wants to like continuously try to be your friend, even for like 10 minutes. You have that experience of just like this person's friends with you, you know?
That's very much Euro maxing, as they say, walking a lot,
Yeah.
having like good food, good wine, and then having like really positive interactions with people. And I'm curious what kind of, you said you kind of ventured out of Madrid. What other places did you go around Spain or around Europe?
I went to a lot of places. I went to Marbella, Malaga, Mallorca. I got to get the M's out first. Barcelona, Madrid, Toledo. So I went to a lot of places in Spain.
Mhm.
I think the place that was definitely for me the most underrated, the place you don't hear anyone talk about, was Extremadura. I want to make sure I
Mhm.
pronounce that right, but it's probably the size of New York State with the population of like Rhode Island.
Mhm.
It's huge and there's no one there. It's all farmland, but it's crazy. The history of it is beautiful. There's so many old like Roman, which is crazy to wrap your head around. The Roman ruins are still in Spain. And
Mhm.
like I think that's the craziest part about going to Europe is how old it is. Like you could never fully comprehend that because I would be walking in a city and someone would point out to me, that's Roman. And that's like 3,000 years old. And then I'm like, the oldest thing in my town is from the 1700s, maybe
Mhm.
1600s if I'm lucky. And like I can't wrap my head around it just being so old and like long lasting. But I went to Extremadura, it was beautiful. Just grasslands and mountains, food. The food was definitely the best I had in Spain. It was like the food capital from what I was told. Um, it was beautiful. I stayed in an old monastery for a night, and that was incredible. But I went to a few other countries. Portugal was one I went to for a weekend. I went to Rome, only in Italy, for a weekend. I went to England, specifically around like the London area, but I left London once or twice. Ireland, and Sweden.
So you kind of got the full tour there of
Yeah.
a lot of what Europe has to offer. And you mentioned those Roman ruins. It's always interesting when you think about the United States. You think, oh, how far back the United States goes.
Yeah.
Relatively to Europe, it doesn't, and the United States is very new when you really think about it. But I'm curious of all those places you visited in Europe, did any of them surprise you in any other ways?
I think the biggest shock to me, at least in England and Ireland, was just left-handed driving. Because
Hmm.
everything in their culture is left-handed, like left-handed driving or like left-sided.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I remember the first time I was going to Ireland, or I was like leaving the airport in Ireland. I got in the car and I wasn't really thinking too much, but then I needed to go somewhere, so I went to a mall. Like I needed to just grab some food. And like the
Mhm.
only place that was open early in the morning was the mall. So I went in it and I went on the right side, assuming that like in my brain it's going up, and it wasn't. It was going
Yeah.
down. So I had like rewire my brain for that. But overall, I think the biggest shock is how old everything is.
Mm,
Because not a single street in those major capitals is younger than the United States.
mm,
Everything's old in the United States. Everything's been planned for centuries and centuries. That everything has a story that is almost deeper than anything that we have here. Like at least this initial glance, you know?
mm,
Um, but I think each culture is different from one another. Like
mm,
going from one culture to another, I did a 2 week period where I was in Sweden, England, and then Rome, and then back to Spain. And it's going to those four countries back to back to back. It was interesting seeing the culture of people change between those four countries. Sweden, I was with my cousins there, and everyone's a lot more like closeted. If you
mm,
go out, you're not going to be talking to like you're not going to be make up random friends as much as you would in like say Spain, where people are always talking to one another. I was in a bar watching a soccer game, and I was in Sweden and no one was talking in the bar. It was completely packed. But the only
mm,
people talking were three other Americans I met that night who were studying abroad in Rome
mm,
a few weeks before. We were talking, they gave me some recommendations. Then when I went to Rome, everyone talks to you. I made
mm,
friends like that. It was crazy the difference between this culture of people and like in a 3 hour drive or 3 hour flight. It's so close. And the fact that like I'm thinking 3 hour flight, that's Connecticut basically down to Florida.
mm,
And the culture, in my opinion, doesn't change that much in America because we all grew up in the same system. but in Europe it's completely different. And I think that's this gives you a good eye, just like how different the world could be, even how close you are.
That's really great perspective and way of looking at it. Because I was going to ask if you kind of noticed any more culture shocks place to place, like you mentioned, kind of the way people interact. Anything else you noticed that really stood out to you that was different place to place?
The first thing that's coming to mind is just hostesses, like how you get served food. Every place has like their own style. Sometimes it's city to city where you sit down yourself, you go up and order yourself. But it's also like the friendliness, I think, is also just based by culture. Because in Ireland, everyone was a little rude, a little snub to
Hmm.
you in London. But like for like the people ordering, um, but in other countries, everyone's like a lot more like nicer. In Sweden, every time I ordered food, everyone was really like uptight, really strict, really posh. Even if I wasn't in a posh area, they always like try to act their best. And
Hmm.
I think that's just about the culture of everyone. And I wish I was able to in those countries where I only had a few days in, I was able to dissect their culture more, but I wasn't. I wish I was able to spend like a month in each country rather than like 4 or 5 days at the max.
So you kind of got like a brief overview of these places, but not necessarily the full thing, but still able to get a great look at things. And I'm curious if there was a specific moment or experience in any of those countries that really stands out to you.
I think the real moments are just with the people. Because like when you're with the people, I think you're with the country at that point. Because like I would go to a lot of sporting events and
Mm,
I'm with those people of that city and then you feel it. Like you feel their passion, you feel their like blood in a sense, their
mm,
culture. But I think just talking with people, sitting down with people and talking is the easiest way to approach their culture and understand it. And I
mm,
feel if you talk to someone, even around your own age, that's like been this like the planet at the same time as you still understand more of the world just from that one small conversation for 10 minutes than you would just walking around the streets. And
mm,
that's what I like kept trying to do. I should have done it more, just thinking about it now, like in hindsight. But
mm,
it was every time I talked to someone, it definitely like made me like my gears in my head turn a bit, like thinking more and more about who like we are and how different we are and how
mm.
similar, but at the same time how similar we are. Like different experiences are so close to one another. Like different cultures are like so close, but yet they're different. They're completely
Mm.
different once you start digging it apart.
We're not as distant as we think we are,
Yeah.
and sometimes we can feel more distant with kind of just like you said, the cultural differences. And you mentioned going to sporting events during your
Mhm.
time in Europe. Can you take us into that?
Yeah, so I'm a big soccer fan. I'm a big Real Madrid fan. My dad's from Madrid. A lot of my
Mm,
family are associates of Madrid. There's like a level of ownership. Like
mm,
it's like the same way the Packers do it, sort
yeah.
of. Um, and in Sevilla, where I was studying, they have two major soccer teams, Sevilla and Real Betis, and they have a big cultural rivalry. And I like people on both teams back in the day. Right
Mm,
now, Betis has one of the guys from my old team that I love, Isco. So I would go to their games, and their tickets are so cheap compared to America. I was
mm,
getting practically front row tickets for 35 euros, $35. The most expensive ticket I paid for Betis was $60, and I was on the front row possible.
wow.
Sevilla was a little bit more expensive, but it was like 60. But they're a more historic club, which makes like team, which makes sense comparatively being better than the last 10 years or better than the last like 40. So they have like a little bit more standstill. But going to the games, you see everyone. I feel comparatively to American sports, there's like a lot more dedicated chants, a lot more
Mm,
dedicated like fan stuff. If you go to a lot of like random games in the United States, you'll see like random people wearing random jerseys. Like you go to a Celtics game, you might see like a bunch of random jersey collections, like people wearing
yeah.
random shirts. But in Spain or in Europe in general, you see people only wearing their team or the other team that's in the stadium, like one or two teams. You never see like more than three teams of jerseys. And there's a this color coordination. Betis is green, so everyone wears green to the stadium. If you feel, even if you want to wear a shirt, like just because a jersey is a jersey, people have like their own taste, but people will still wear green. And you'll see them enter the stadium wearing this green scarves, green this, green that, and everyone knows all the chants to each of the game, like each song, minute after minute. And I was in the Betis, my first game. I met this random guy, and he was asked, like, we were talking, and he was like teaching me the chants so
Hmm.
I could enjoy it too, because I was in like next to supporter section. So we're standing up the entire game. He's telling me like the chants and what they mean and why they chanted them because I know my team's chants. So like when I went to their stadium, I already knew what to say. But like going to their team, I just it was incredible just hearing everyone in unison chanting this, chanting that for 90 minutes. And I felt every time I went to an American game, you have chants, but they're
Hmm.
never as long because soccer chants are like songs. They
Hmm.
go for a minute. They have like a whole melody they follow a structure. Well, American chants are like one, two, three, clap, clap. Like
Hmm.
they have like a shorter structure, and I think the complexity of it probably just lies in the history and how long each team has been around. But it was incredible watching all of that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you putting it in perspective compared to the United States, where in Europe it's more like ingrained in their like you said, ingrained in their blood to love these teams and to support them no matter what. Was there any other sort of sports atmosphere differences you noticed in your time?
They have a lot less consumerism over there in terms of soccer. When I was in the stadiums, you to only buy like one brand of stuff. There wasn't like many other, there was only the stadium sellers. And they
Mhm.
were only selling like the drinks that they had. There wasn't like a Coca-Cola stand. You could
Mhm.
buy Coke, but it was coming from one place, and they weren't really directly advertising Coca-Cola. They were saying soda. You could go up and ask for a Coke. I think that's the one difference. But the other ones are um once you get out to like the lower levels, then it feels weaker than like there's like different levels of soccer in Spain or like in Europe. So you have like what first division, second division. As soon as you hit the plateau of second division, everything feels like a college sport. Like the fans, sometimes the energy is like a little higher, but the energy completely changes once you take the first steps off. And I think that's crazy that even if the team is like was super good 5 years ago, they're in the first division, they go down once, then there's immediately like they feel like a college stadium at a time.
Mhm.
It could be huge stadiums, like 30,000 seats, but the chance, everything inside of it just feels college and feels a little soulless.
Mhm.
And then because of that, there's not a lot of money as a like doesn't feel like there's as much money. So the stadiums they look worse in times. They feel worse. There's a lot of cracks in them. The bathrooms are disgusting. Like everything
Mhm.
because there's everything they can go down and up, like you can go up and down in divisions. There's not a permanent money strain, so companies don't invest. And there's a lot of rules about investing in soccer in Europe. So every stadium like feels completely like 50-50 if it's gonna be like, amazing inside or amazing or not. And I think that's a big culture shock because in America, see like the FedEx Field arena, that's a terrible stadium. But you
Mhm.
go there it's a decent stadium. It's huge. It's just there's a lot of like random cracks and stuff. But that's where almost every stadium I went to felt like that. There's a lot of cracks everywhere. They need renovations for the last like 20 years, and they are pushing it off. It's just now. That's where I felt everywhere. When I went to F1, I felt that's where I felt American consumerism.
Mhm.
You have like a bunch of different brand pop-ups everywhere, stretching down thousands of like anchors of yardage. You have like different signs for this, that, and that felt more American focused, just in terms of just like plugging the branding around. But I never went to an American F1 of it, like equivalent, like a NASCAR, IndyCar, or an F1 race there. I never went to a race in America that's like at the same level of like money as F1 is in Spain. F1, IndyCar, or NASCAR. I never went to like anything in America. so I can't disclose how that difference feels. But just seeing that entering that, which is like a more global market, there's American drivers, oh, there's American teams, a lot more stuff. That initial level is a lot more consumerism around. And I feel just the bigger global brands, like as you just have one American team, I think it just completely changes the atmosphere of the entire sport.
So there's quite literally levels to all of this. And
Yeah,
I'm glad you bring up F1 as well, another huge sporting venue. Would you be able, or sporting league, I should say,
yeah.
would you be able to take us into more of how that compares to a lot of the soccer games you went to out there?
I bought general admission for the Spanish Grand Prix, which was about $105, maybe 120. I'm just forgetting like what I paid originally because I bought it so far ahead. I bought for me and my cousin, but we bought standing room tickets. So there's like only say 70,000 seats at this event, and the rest of the seats are just grass. You have to sit down. You get there early, but you it's a 3 day event. So I bought Friday to Sunday, and um we would get there super early and sit in the grass, and it was 100 degrees each day, and it was terrible. They like the water was expensive there. If you wanted to fill your water up, you had to wait in like a 20-minute line. It was like two bathrooms per like 20,000 people. So it got bad pretty quickly. But comparatively to soccer, um, they definitely do a lot more fan service throughout the entire night, like throughout the entire event, because you're there for so long. We were there from probably 7 a.m. to 3 or 4 p.m. each day, and walking from the stadium or from like the bus stop where we would come in from, and then to the like track, you have thousands of like bars or pop-ups just trying to get you to come in and get money, which felt like some of the bigger games in Spain for soccer, but not all of them because sometimes you just have like a group of bars around just promoting it. Over time, you'd have like hundreds, but this they always had like activities for you to do between events, and you could spend the entire day at the F1 track doing different events and not going and looking at the cars because they try to make you like do stuff like they give you activities to do to entertain yourself, and it
Mhm.
feels a lot more like a I guess like a festival
Mhm.
with like an onlook of like a music festival. You know how you have like different tiers of like actor or performances coming out. You like look at these schedules and say, "Oh, I don't want to watch any of the other events today, but I have my spot like where I'm going to sit, so I'm going to go do the like random stuff around the track." So people would just do that. So one of the days we didn't want to watch like the practices until like the actual F1 cars came on, so we left that our area and we just started doing like random activities until we like checked our time and said, "Oh, it's 2 o'clock. Let's go back and watch the cars race." We would walk around. We had like uh, F1 simulators where we like race against like 20 people and try to finish in first place. We did not do great. We got like eighth, but it feels a lot more festival-y than just like a sporting event. And I don't know how that makes me feel,
Mhm.
like in terms of just like being someone that watches sports. I don't know if I want my like week to like feel like that, but at the same time, it's completely different from every other sport. You're there for 3 days. You're
Mhm.
buying a ticket. You want to be there, and you probably want to entertain yourself more than just watching the cars go by. So I think that makes
Mhm.
sense. And comparatively to soccer, where you're there for only 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours if it's like a big long game. I think that's the difference is that soccer, you're always watching it. And then once it's over, you just leave. That's
Mhm.
it. You don't really, like, unless it's like a big game, you don't stay and watch your team like celebrate. You just leave. The game's over, they go to the locker room, and everyone leaves. I think that's a big difference. F1 feels a lot more like a festival rather than just a sporting event.
So like soccer, it's very much more of like a rite of passage. Formula One, it's more fun. If that
Yeah,
kind of boils it down. That
yeah,
makes sense.
I guess so because you're always like doing something. Soccer, I think you're everyone's living the same moment is like a good way of like describing it. Everyone's watching the same thing. Everyone's waiting for this one thing to happen. In F1, it's just this festival for everyone waiting for the like random things to happen. There's too
Mhm.
many drivers and there's too many teams that no one's like directly focused on one group. It's too global of a sport comparatively to soccer, where you're not going to have a random group of like away fans in the outside of like in the supporter section, like the home team supporter section. The away fans go to their section and they're watching with their fans. So everyone's sheltered and separated,
Mhm.
but everyone you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. So amongst both soccer and F1, do you have a favorite moment or anything?
On Easter, I made like a trek. So I wanted to see like one of my cousins, and she has like Real Madrid tickets. So I was gonna go with her to the game. I couldn't get seats with them because of just like occupancy,
Mhm.
but like I spent like the day with the family, like meeting some family in Spain that I never met before, and that was great. But the game itself, it was a big game. At that point, we were still chasing the title. In the end, we didn't get it, but like winning this game would give us like a step closer, and it was incredible. It was an incredible game. It was Real Madrid and Athletic Club Bilbao. Um, we were watching the entire game, and it was terrible for like the both teams. No one could score. There was
Mhm.
one goal for Real Madrid that was offside, which means it didn't count. And then the last possible minute, like it was past like during the extended time, Fede Valverde, one of the best players on the team, scores an amazing goal that once he hits the ball, everyone in the stadium felt like Zor was waiting for the ball to go in the net. And once it did, the stadium exploded.
Mhm.
I remember that I was sitting in like a chair or like in my seat, and the guy next to me puts his arm around me for some reason, grabbing the back of my shirt. And then he screams. And he pulls me like this, holding my jersey, and we're screaming together. Everyone around us is screaming, and like he's like everyone in the stadium celebrating. I'm looking, and I see everyone on the field celebrating as wildly as we are. And I felt like that moment itself, just watching like a last minute goal in person, a last minute goal that was incredible, like should have could be like one of his best goals ever. Um, in person was such a monumental thing for me, and I was completely shocked that I was super close to it as well. Like where my seat was, I was close. I had a perfect view of it, and it was incredible. It was monumental for me. I always think about that whenever I like think about like going back to the game. I always think about that strike, watching it from afar.
Mhm. And it's all that matters too. Like the game was slow the whole way, but you got that moment, testament to sticking it out and being able to experience something like that with with everyone in that arena. And I want to take you back a little bit to all your travels across different places in Europe. I'm curious if you had one place that you would recommend to someone visiting Europe for the first time, what would it be?
I would recommend Ireland. I think like a week in Ireland would be perfect. Like get a car. I had a lot of fun. I was in Ireland for about like 5 days or so, and every day I had fun. I wish I had a car though, so I could like explore more of the country. We did one like bus trip across to like the Cliffs of Moher, which
Mhm.
is like a beautiful cliff area. But Ireland itself, it's a beautiful country. It's the most green I've ever seen in my life. That's like, the
Mhm.
easy way to describe it. It was beautiful. It was incredible. People are really friendly. The people, it's like maybe not the workers. If like you talk to someone, they might just be like their work culture might be different from how like I just like imagined it. But like I never feel like the workers might have like rubbed you the wrong way every now and then. But the people, everyone was super nice. They always want to talk to you. It just felt like a good country. And I think I want to go back just for a week because it
Mhm.
was fun. My friend's in Galway right now, studying. I was planning to come go up there, but I couldn't make it work. But like it was such a fun country, and I definitely want to go back there.
Always hear great things about Ireland as a great kind of like you
Yeah.
said, stepping stone into Europe, but also just a fun culture with a lot of really great people. And you also mentioned in Spain that you lived and reunited with family. Can you tell us more about
Yeah.
what that experience was like?
Yeah. So my dad hadn't gone back to Spain since like when he since the 90s. So like I was the first one really going back there. A few of my cousins came over. So I saw them every now and then. one of the cousins I knew pretty well, probably the most, Alberto. Me and him met up. So when I left for Spain, I stayed a week with him. So he taught me some of the culture, some of like what the rules are, and it was great. He took my debit card, so I couldn't spend money. I tried to pay for one meal. Shouldn't have done that. But afterwards, I got like in contact with a lot more of my family, and
Mhm.
I was texting them, and then I would go, and I would like meet them with up them for a weekend, and it was nice. I had someone in the country. I had some that like I could rely on and know, and just meeting them for the first time, I felt like I met them for my entire life because of
Mhm.
how open they are, and even if like I've always talked to them like online or something, maybe not like the younger ones. I have like a few like 6-year-old cousins, 5-year-old cousins. But like the older ones I always talked to. And my sister knew them. So everyone knew me. Everyone like knew of me. And there was like a few like language things. I'm not the best at speaking Spanish. And some of them haven't spoke English in a while. So it was 50-50. But I love them and I think they were super nice to me. I just hope that one day I can repay like truly repay that to them because they
Mhm.
housed me for weeks, each group of them, and like I always talk to them. I talked to them. I think like the last time was 2 days ago, but like overall, I think it's like a nice system to have. I really hope that like it's a reunion of a family where we can continue. I can continue to go to Spain, and like I we can all talk to each other, be friends with each other, and they
Mhm.
can come to America and vice versa.
Yeah, and that's a perfect entryway into a place to learn about the culture from
Yeah.
your own family. And I'm curious, kind of looking back on all of these travels, if you could give yourself advice, knowing what you know now before your trip started, what would you say?
I think just mainly just learn the language.
Hmm.
I beat myself up for over every night. I don't think I took it seriously when I was thinking about it
Hmm.
because my dad would always tell me, "Oh, people want to speak English if you practice your English," which is definitely a true statement. A lot of people will do that, but I thought too much of that. I was going in as like a dumb American, and I
Hmm.
definitely paid some punishment for it, like over random dinners where like I would say something, and they would say, "What?" and like or there was a lot of random times where stuff would happen. And I think just definitely you have to learn the language of every country you go to, or at least like the a lot of the basic principles. Because I would learn the basic principles in each country. Maybe not Swedish. Swedish was terrible. I don't want to even think about that language. Terrible. Can't understand it. Don't believe it's real. But like if I ever go back like to Spain, I'm practicing my Spanish just so I can get
Hmm.
better, just so I can like hold a conversation, and I don't feel like I'm holding myself back because I can't speak Spanish with them, and they have to like speak English with me or like speak we speak like a mix. I go as far as I can. I wish I should be able to, like as a person, and I think that's my number one advice to anyone is just always learn the language as much as you can beforehand. Like I was planning this trip out since I was in high school, and I didn't really pay attention to my language classes back then, and I think I should have, and I should have paid the price, and I paid the price in the end. I only started caring about it in the last 2 or so years.
It's all a learning experience at the end of the
Yeah,
day, and now you'll know for next time. And I know from my travels too, with certain things like, oh, why didn't I know to do that? Now
yeah.
you know just through having been able to be there and kind of get the lay of the land in your own mind. And I'm also curious, since you're a filmmaker at heart, what did this experience, or how did this experience influence your future work?
I think film as a general, like as a medium, is always telling stories, like telling someone else's story. And I think doing that, like through this experience, allows me to understand people more as a whole,
Hmm.
especially ones that are different from myself. You talk to like thousands of people when you're like I was like for 6 months I was gone. I talked to thousands of people, and each time you talk to someone, your viewpoint slightly changes in the world, like ever so slightly. And I think that just allows you to just be a better person. And
Hmm.
then the more people you talk to, the better original either things you could write, create,
Hmm.
but film's about telling other people's stories. And if you're able to travel abroad, you're able to learn more about people, and then vice versa, you're able to make better stories, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And I think hopefully I'm able to do something like that. That's what I want to do.
I would 100% agree because stories are about people, and then when you get out, kind of like you said, see different places, meet different people, it just widens that perspective and makes you a much stronger storyteller. And then to kind of get into some of your storytelling, you directed your capstone thesis film for Quinnipiac University. Can you tell us about that?
So ours is called Good Samaritan. It follows like a woman who like gets her bag stolen. But the big thing about that was we wanted good actors because
Hmm.
our film wasn't really like technically challenging. It was mainly just the writing, which I had nothing to do with that. But it was like the actors, and we found these two great actors, one from Washington, D.C. and one from New London, Connecticut, and they were both fantastic. Like it felt like on set, they
Hmm.
they rolled well. They memorized the script early on, like before auditions. Our auditions, we had like some nightmares where a guy was reading it for the first time right then and there. And then we
Hmm.
had the next girl who was staring at us in the camera and she memorized the entire script. And I asked her to just like do random changes and she did it immediately. And I think working with such talented people like allowed me to like trying to figure out how I want to go about my future, seeing like these people are powerful, like are amazing, and like this is where I want to be working into. So I have to like match their level, and I think that's like a was a true challenge. But I think in the end, it ended up okay. We were filming in Union Station in New Haven, which was
Hmm.
like a crazy experience in itself, working around people. They were really accommodating to us. They were great to us. We had our own like little security guard. She was like just making sure no one would like walk into a shot or try to steal something. She was just protecting us, and she was great. We're crediting her in the film. But overall, I think it was a good experience. A lot very stressful, but I think overall everyone had a great time, and I keep thinking of it.
Can you take us more into filming at a train station? Because that sounds like for a big student film like this, that seems like a tall task. I'm curious how you guys pulled that off.
Yeah, so that was mainly my producer Megan's like department, and I think I should have helped more in like in hindsight, but it was a lot of hard work just negotiating. It was trying to figure out where we were allowed to film,
Hmm.
and we kept getting told if we go on the platforms once, $15,000 gone. So we're
Oh.
like we had to figure out how to go on the platform or like how to like ensue that she leaves and goes on the train without going to the platform. So we're allowed to film basically anywhere else in the station, besides like the ticket counter because that's owned by Amtrak. So
Mm.
we they gave us a security booth, which we just made look like a ticket counter by
Mm.
just doing simple like the person walks over to it, and we just like cover up the security. Um, but the biggest problem was the PA system.
Mm.
Every like 5 to 10 minutes, a PA announcement would happen, completely ruin your scene. So our biggest problem was just getting everything done because we could have any amount of equipment we wanted besides like maybe lighting, but the lighting was good enough that we could just roll without lighting equipment. There was not many plugs in a lot of the areas. It was an old station from the 1920s. There's not a lot of like excess plugs, so we were just kind of like running and gunning in a sense. We had a lot of like equipment, a lot of cameras, and the microphones. We had like a whole system set up, and we were once we got like set up, we would run through scenes, and it was perfect. Everyone was like a well-oiled machine, and we were trying to be super respectful. So we'd look at the train schedule, see nothing's on this track for a while. So we'd film in like that track's entrance or exit, and try to film as much as possible before that happens. And then once we see that the train's coming in like 5 minutes, we would just give everyone a break. And I would talk to the actors for like 15, 20 minutes while the people leave and other people come on. Then we go back to filming just so we don't have a constant slew of like different people throughout the film. But
Mm.
it was a challenge, and it definitely wasn't one of my best experiences because I had a little like cough during the time.
Mm.
So every like 10 or so minutes, I was either sneezing or coughing as well.
Yeah, well, I respect the boldness of going for something like that, filming on a train station, knowing there's going to be all of those different kinds of variables. And what was it like for you directing, but this being such a high stakes project, a culmination of your time at the school. What was that experience like for you?
It was very stressful for me. It was my first big time directing something for real. Um, my group, no one really took the directing class. I missed some important meetings while I was in Spain for Capstone stuff. Um, that's neither here nor there. So I was like reading a lot of books. The professor Dennis Home, he
Hmm.
gave me a lot of like books I should read, and then our like advisor for our set of Capstone films was David Atkins. So I was
Hmm.
talking with him every week, and he was trying to help me improve as like a director. And I think those outlooks um, definitely helped me get better. And I think I think also just having talented actors took a massive weight off my shoulder because
Hmm.
they understood the script and we did table reads twice and I told them what I wanted from the characters and they understood it instantly and they
Hmm.
gave me the energy that I was looking for in the table reads and I had that energy on set so I was able to just feel more so of like trying to just make sure I kept that energy throughout the entire thing.
And kind of like we talked about with like something like soccer, film was a team sport. So even
Yeah.
with yourself having to miss meetings or having to really consult with professors, you had this great team around you and great actors who were able to help bring everything together. But you and I know each other and work together at the marketing department for
Yeah.
Quinnipiac University called Quinnipiac Productions. Would you be able to talk about your time there and the work you do there?
I think the way the company works, like the way Quinnipiac works itself, is they want to help you get better. And I
Hmm.
think that's an important outlet. Me and Johan talk once a week. And he always says if you do one thing new, like better, like you improve on something, you find out like a different way to do something, that's one shift good. And then I always ask him like to help me with equipment, like help me learn how to shoot. And I think that experience, like having Justin, Johan, and Peter available to me, is just like even as like a boss figure, still just allows me to get so much better as a worker, as like a filmer, as an editor. And I think that's like an important thing. And I'm very privileged to have been able to work there. And I thank Peter for inviting me.
100%. And especially as myself, as I've been venturing into professional filmmaking spaces, I realize just how transferable the things we learned there really are. And I'm curious, like, in your time working there, is there any specific project or anything like that that really stands out?
I've worked like a lot of like the back end stuff. Um, but the thing that I love the most about the job is definitely the filming because I feel you have a lot more free reign with everything. You can do like you have like an assignment, but you capture it like a certain way. And I think sometimes you get in the zone of capturing something and it feels so nice. Like
Hmm.
going to the hockey games, sometimes I get like a lot of good footage and I just get in the zone of just like trying to get perfect shots. I'm trying to figure out how the shot would work in a video. And I think that mindset is what I want to continue having. And I felt I had the same mindset when I was on this, like when I was making my shot list, because we're using an easy rig, which is like a handheld rig for a fewer shots. So me and my cinematographer were making our shot list. Um, I was thinking of my experiences while filming on that. Even if I wasn't touching the camera, I knew the shot that I think would look good, so I'd explain it, and was just imagining what I was filming for the job. And I think that helped me so much now, such early on in my career. I'm gonna hope I just know it's gonna help me later on.
And it's very interesting working in the film space for something like narrative and then something like marketing
Yeah,
or corporate, if that's the way to phrase it. And that even though they feel different, they might be lit differently, one's real time, one's scripted, they all kind of come together and it's very similar principles. That's something I've been realizing a lot too. And so kind of the skills we learned in the marketing department, marketing video department, it all kind of carries over. And I'm happy that you were able to utilize those skills on your own capstone. And of course, Peter, Justin, Johan, those are the directors of our program at Quinnipiac Productions. And to
hmm
kind of move kind of forwards from that, I'd like to ask you some fun get to know you questions. And what's something people might not know about you, like some fun facts?
this is a hard one. I saw you on the list. I couldn't really think of it at the top of my head, but I was in an old Lego commercial back in the day.
Really?
It was like maybe that was not a commercial, but it was like a YouTube video they posted where
Hmm.
our West Farms Mall in West Hartford, Connecticut. I went
Hmm.
there as a kid, and then they were filming a big video there to like announce like a new line of Lego sets. And like
Wow.
I somehow just ended up at the store at the right moment, right time. And I'm in the video,
Hmm.
and I look lost. This is in general, but that's like a big thing. Like that's like a little party fact sometimes I throw out there,
Hmm.
like a fun fact I throw out at parties. But like I feel like that's like the big thing, just because I can't really think of anything on top of my head.
It's like foreshadowing of your
Yeah.
future, you ending up in a video and kind of carrying on from there. What's one thing you love and one thing you strongly dislike?
One thing I love is just the I want to say about Quinnipiac. I also make like try to make it about Quinnipiac is
Hmm.
how accessible some of the professors are and how like
Hmm.
they're always able to help you. If I email like 90% of my film professors, I'll get an email back within 2 hours
Hmm.
and like my question answered. And I think that is an amazing tool to have. I can almost
Hmm.
email anyone and they'll always try to help me. That's the thing that I love about them. Like they want you to succeed and they will help you. You just have
Hmm.
to put in the effort of just asking them to help you. And then one thing I dislike, um, probably I'm really bad at just writing. So I want to say like maybe writing. Like just putting words on a page. Sometimes it's really hard for me. Sometimes I'm really good at it.
Hmm.
But overall, I think it's like one thing I dislike, and that's why I'm more towards the visual medium.
I very much understand that, and it's good to recognize the things that you want to do in something like film versus things you don't. And I very much second what you said. Like you mentioned Dennis Hone, who I was fortunate enough to have on
Yeah.
the show as well. And it's great to always have those resources and that you kind of get out what you put in at
Hmm.
Quinnipiac, and you putting in so much, you're gonna get that reciprocated by the department. And now I'm wanna curious to ask you your hopes and dreams personally and professionally.
Personally, I do want to move to Spain. I
Mhm.
fell in love with the country when I was there. And I just think, just personally, I think I would be loved to go there. My cousin's
Mhm.
in Sweden. He is from Connecticut. He's from my town. So he moved there like a few years ago, let's say like 10 or so. And he was telling me that like the one thing you can always think of is you could never like completely settle down. Always make sure you have a backup plan.
Mhm.
So like, especially when I'm young, he said, because he's like 40, he has kids. He said, I should always think about if I should return home and I always should have enough money to return home. So like I always think about that. But professionally, I want to go into like as of now, I've always had this idea, either like film some kind or I want to be like a war journalist. I always had
Mhm.
a fascination about that. I always like I grew up watching like those old Vice shows where they would send like a camera guy out and it would cover like other stuff. And I always thought in my head, it's so important to have someone to capture other people's stories. It's
Mhm.
important to be able to tell people's stories who are not able to tell their own. And I always
Mhm.
think about that, like someone should do that, and why couldn't it be me?
So going out and
Yeah.
filming, so you said like a war journalist, so like,
Yeah, like a war journalist or like a different kind of just like a storyteller where
hmm,
I should be able to go, someone should go out there and tell people's stories who cannot tell their own. And I'm
hmm,
like, that could be me theoretically. I'm like,
yeah.
why shouldn't that be me? So I always think about that. And that's something that like I might cross into in the future, depending on like whatever paths I go into, whatever jobs I
Mhm.
take. Maybe that's where I end up.
And you have those skills from Quinnipiac marketing team of taking a camera into a live environment
Mhm.
and capturing people's stories, whether that be, kids chanting at a Quinnipiac hockey game to whatever else that might be. Like I said, those skills all transfer over. And you kind of talked about growing up loving movies. What are some of your favorite movies and why do they resonate with you?
I'll do my letterbox four. I'll just rip that one.
Yeah.
The Lego movie is definitely my favorite.
Mhm.
Some reason I just grew up loving Lego, and then when that movie came out, I loved it. I've seen it so many times. I think it's a good story. It's a good animation and it has a good message. So I think that's an important thing. Um, the next one I think would be A Bridge Too Far. It's an epic war film, and
Mm,
I love epics. I think epics are the most complicated genre to make. Like this is why I'm thinking now after directing something, because you have so many men on screen, you have thousands and thousands of actors,
mm,
and they all doing certain actions. And I think A Bridge Too Far captures that in an almost perfect way, expanding on like a super historically accurate event, trying to follow details down to the minute, which is something incredible. And I think it's a great film. It's a little long, but it's a thing that me and my friends, like me and one of my friends, always watch once a year, and like we always have fun doing it. Empire Strikes Back would be my third. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's the best Star Wars film. I think it's the best film ever, like almost by far. It's perfect in every detail. And I remember the day I watched that for the first time, my mom got Redbox. It got the New Hope, like got the whole trilogy,
mm,
and I watched The New Hope, Empire Strikes Back in the same day. And I just remember watching Empire Strikes Back for the first time and unraveling everything when I was like 6 years old. And it
mm,
was incredible. And it just that those memories just stick inside my mind for so long that it has to be something. It
mm,
has to make it like bigger. Like it makes me feel bigger than I am, you know?
mm,
And it makes that's where I want from a film is to make it feel bigger. Um, and then for my last one, I can't think of anything on top of my head. We'll go with Blade Runner. I think
mm,
it's a well-crafted film. Of 2049, the newest
mm,
one. I love Sir Roger Deakins as a
mm,
cinematographer. And I think that's if like I ever was cinematographer, I try to like mimic him. Sometimes when I shoot my own stuff, maybe not for work, because different style of shooting, but overall, I try to shoot like him just because his style is so, in my mind, perfect.
mm.
I always try to like capture everything like that.
Great selection of films. I really love what you said about epics, which I feel like is sort of a lost art nowadays in films. If you
Yeah,
think about something like Ben-Hur or Lawrence of Arabia, so on and so forth, these gigantic Hollywood sets that I feel like is kind of gone now with so much CGI and things like that. I feel like the closest we really have to that is something like Dune.
that's what I'm thinking too. I think that's like the only modern equivalent.
And so that is something that I wish that I hope to see make a comeback at some point. Those like really big kind of Hollywood sets with tons of actors. And overall, Antonio, I really appreciated you coming on the show today and sharing all these insights.
Yeah, of course, man. I've been waiting for months. This is as soon as I found out about the Zicast, I was like, oh, I gotta get on.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time. And I'm curious if you have any motivational words or any plugs or anything else you want to leave the audience with.
I got nothing. I think just everyone should just I think a important piece of advice is everyone should read like one story from like say the New York Times. I think we're all college students. We all have a free subscription. Like you can
Mm,
get one. I always read one or two stories a day, and I
mm,
always try to change the country. Like I always read about a different country, different experience, different culture, about like what's happening there, just so I have like a bigger insight on the world. And I think that's an important thing to have as like a person, as a person, as a filmmaker, and like especially if you're a comms major, you should
mm,
know what's happening in the world, and you should be able to follow that, like and
mm.
understand more of the world. I think that's important.
Yeah, and then allow that to tailor your storytelling. And of course, like, Quinnipiac, we talk about being globally minded a lot. That's exactly what you're doing. And I think that's going to really bode well for you, Antonio. And yeah, overall, I always appreciated you supporting myself, supporting the show. You've always been super friendly, whether it be at work or elsewhere. And I've always appreciated seeing your work and appreciated you sharing these awesome experiences. I always remembered living vicariously through your Instagram stories when you were at Spain. And
Yeah.
I've been waiting a while to be able to talk to you about this. So thank you so much for coming on, Antonio, and for sharing your time today.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime.
Yeah, great catching up. And as always, this is Ryan Ziaks with the Zicast, where everyone has a story. Signing off. Thank you so much for watching.